welcome. Very happy to have you here. I'm assuming you know what the conference is about, like the gathering here, just because you're here. So I won't try and sell it additionally to you, but the main goal here is that we as Verge wanted to find ways to connect with the community, stakeholders, different people in this space, find ways of sharing knowledge, communicating, engaging with each other, connecting, and just being able to kind of tackle topics that we don't usually get to tackle together because we try to figure things out on our own, hence the name Converge. It also just aligns with our company name, Verge, so we thought it was a cool connection. I want to give just one special note for this specific Converge, which is technically it's our birthday in 2 days for Converge. The first Converge happened almost a year ago. So for the team that's been involved in making sure that we've kept this going for a whole year, kudos to all of you. The people behind the cameras and the people over here. Can we give them a small clap, just like us? Yeah. My name is Cedric Nzomo, if you want to add extra syllables. I'm a director at Verge. I oversee the content, creative, and digital teams, but mostly I just kind of sit around and do a bunch of things. And today I will be talking to you about this topic. I'll be your first speaker. I'll be talking to you about turning attention into intention and how we can achieve storytelling success for B2B. So as we get started, I think I just kind of want to frame a few things. One, like I said, I get lonely up here, so please interrupt me and talk to me as frequently as possible. But then the second thing is that I'm going to try as much as possible to not go over things that you're going to run into all the time if you Google B2B marketing strategies. I will assume, wrongly or rightly, that you've seen a lot of those things before. So I'm going to just focus very specifically on the things that are relevant for storytelling strategies and for content marketing. With that said, there is one cliche that is going to come up at some point in the presentation, and I encourage you to just bear with me. It comes with a trigger warning. But outside of that, the rest of this is going to be primarily centered around my best estimate of what would help you as B2B marketers or as people in this space just find success in this specific area. So let's start with what can good content, or actually no, let's ignore good for a second. Let's just look at what content can do for you. This is a very top line explanation, but I want to frame this a little bit in the B2B context, because as I've been researching this, one of the things I've realized, just B2B content, with due respect to everybody trying really hard, is primarily not good, which is not bad, but it's primarily not specifically, class leading in many ways. And this is mostly because I think we've all encountered the same hurdles that that I'm sure we've all faced, where you try to innovate, but in a company that's a little bit more rigid, that has a little bit more intense bureaucracy and process, it's very difficult to say, oh, let's do something fun and get away with it, right? B2Cs kind of have the fun there. But still, I'm going to poke at this just to kind of give you an idea of what I've seen. So let's imagine we worked in the signage industry. Please remember this example for later. I went looking at Falcon signs, but does anyone here work in signage or know someone at Falcon before I make fun of them? Okay, cool. I'll take that as my pass to crack jokes. So I went looking, and first of all, I don't know if off the top of your head you can remember these companies' names, the ones that do stuff like this. I struggled. I was like, let me just try and think of one that's been there for a long time and been successful. And honestly, top of my head, brand recognition was like flailing, right? I could think of Pelican because I see the logo sometimes on like the things. And I'm sure if you worked with suppliers, when you're doing your light boxes, right? Yeah, so it's like the ones you work with are the ones you remember. But then off the top of your head, do you see any like marketing communication for any type of these companies anywhere? Can you see their social content in your head? They don't occupy any real estate in your brain right now, right? Well, again, with respect to them, they don't occupy a significant amount of real estate there. And this is kind of the point. I went looking at their content. And there's a reason it's not in your brain right now. And I know it might look like I went and picked this from a few years ago so that I could make fun of them. If you read the timestamp at the bottom there, it's from 2 days ago. Yeah? This is primarily the type of content you see when businesses think they're talking to businesses. It is what you would see on a flyer being passed on Kirinyaga Road. It is what you would see in essentially the lowest effort marketing possible. It's not at Canva level unless it's a template. You know what I mean? It is something that hasn't gone through the process that you would go through if this was any other brand that made the level of revenue that they do. If this was a B2C company with that, P&L, I guarantee that they would not have content like that, right? Because they would invest a little bit in it. But that's not the point. I think the point is that if you see something like that and you connect that to the previous question, how many of you remember them? There's a very clear reason why. It's not very memorable, yeah? I'm going to show you an example of something memorable because I wanted to start the day off with something light. I didn't say it's good, but I said it's memorable, yeah? So let me see if hopefully the sound plays. Everybody pray for me. Technology and me don't get along. Okay. Oh. Yay, technology failed. All right, I'm going to show you this without the sound just because I don't want to... Sorry, I'm going to show you this without the sound just because I don't want to waste the extra time it'll take us to figure out what cables are not connected where. But this is a Chinese company called LC Sign, right? This company makes signs the same way Falcon makes signs, Pelican makes signs, the other guys make signs as well, right? They hired this dude called Tony, and Tony was told that his one job was to increase their market share, because they're doing pretty well in China, to increase their market share in Europe and in Africa, right? And he was told, you need to find your way into those markets. He went, he did his research, came back, and he's like, you know what we do? We go on TikTok. And I guess the boss was like, I do whatever you're doing as long as it doesn't cost us money. So he basically goes into the studio, into the factory. In the factory, you'll see him like he's actually on the factory floor, and he picks up signs and demos how to use them. But because his English is really bad, what he does is he mimics the accent of the person he thinks is listening. That's why the sound was important. I'm not going to do his accent, but he mimics the sound of the person he thinks is listening. And very frequently, he also does little things to kind of grab your attention. So he will he'll intentionally misspell words or intentionally kind of do things. But the main thing I want you to take from this is he will demo the product for you, and he'll give you every single instruction you need to order it from them. So it starts out by saying, hey, homies, this is Tony. And then he walks you through how you can magnetically connect this thing, and it'll switch on all the letters, and no, he's not going to spell what you think he's going to spell. But the fact that you watch expecting it means that you're listening the entire time to hear what he's saying, right? Especially because the build-up to it is him saying whatever industry you're in, and he switches the letter. So you start following these little things, and it worked fantastically. This video initially, before it was taken down, because people reported it because they thought it spelled something else, had 27 million views. Their sales in Africa and Asia increased respectively 140% and 71% from TikTok, right? And again, say what you will about B2B being boring. I don't think there's anything more boring than lights, honestly. I mean, I know I'm in production and creative and stuff, but geez, lights. Anyway, he does this for a lot of different ones. He does different accents. He does different types of lights, and he demos all of them. And he does this so consistent. Like if you go to their page now, their page was taken down and it was brought back up. I think they're now at, they have 2 pages, so I think they're now at a collective 90K followers on TikTok. But they were taken down and brought back up and grew completely to back to this number of almost 100,000 followers, strictly from him going in. And you can see people walking around him and doing this ridiculous thing that I guarantee you took less effort than whatever Falcon did. Was it Falcon or Pelican? I'll give 50 bob to whoever guesses correctly. Okay. So it was someone 50 bob over there. So anyway, point being, I think it's mostly a matter of perspective. He also did one, by the way, after Trump got shot, literally the day after Trump got shot, where he pretended to be him, and the sound effect is like a gunshot going off every time you see him ducking like that, but he's selling you a light, right? So trend jacking everything you expect. Super well done in terms of the ideation. But is it good content? Is it particularly good content? Was there any notable production value? If you had the accent, you'd be appalled? No, but the idea here is that brand then carried based on the story. When I say what can a story do for you, this is what I mean. What can content do for you? This is what I mean. When you're trying to shift from people being aware that you exist to people having a feeling about you existing, this is specifically what I mean. If you do nothing, then expect nothing. Right? But if you do something, whatever that something is, and you lean into it and you commit to it, I don't think anybody thinks their products are bad because they've seen them work. They think these guys have a little bit of fun. Is that a bad thing? At the end of the day, we like working with fun people. The fact that you can say, hey, I want to talk to Tony. He actually does factory tours for people who go to the factory. You can actually go and do a tour with Tony. Right? Those little things added all this personality to a company that didn't have a marketing budget and was B2B and decided that TikTok was their strategy to enter 2 continents, and it worked, right? So I think it's important to kind of keep this in mind, because if I went to this with the same strategy to Falcon, I'm pretty sure the likelihood of it surviving might not be the same, right? When we talk about brand, there's 2 things. I think for those of you who are in my other brand presentation this week, you've already seen this, so skip past mentally. But when we're talking about brand, at least from how we approach it as Verge, there's always 2 big components that we're looking at. We're looking at the pillars that make up your performance, which is how you behave, how you engage with people, and then the pillars that make up your perception, which is how people receive you, right? And for your performance, you're looking at your culture. So your culture goes into the things that you normally put in like documents that you want people to say about you. Your mission, your vision, your values, purpose, the things that you care about. Those things define your culture. But it's an active process. If you say it and don't live it, then it doesn't mean anything. If you say, yes, we care about young Kenyans, but when Gen Zs were being bashed online, you are just silent, they decided you don't care about them. If you say we're a pro-women brand, but when there were marches for femicide, you kept quiet. Those are the things that you kind of need to keep in mind when it comes to culture. It also matters when it comes to community, because your culture feeds into your community. Community isn't just the people who work with you, it's the people who work with you in the larger sense. You people are now part of the Verge community. Thank you. But also your clients, your ambassadors, your influencers, everybody who engages and co-creates your brand with you is part of your community, and they do define your brand. So everybody who goes out there is part of the community of the brand that they represent. Tony is part of LC Sign. So when you see him, you kind of see them, and when he behaves a certain way, they behave a certain way. So you have to keep that in mind as well when you're looking at the people who carry your brand as they go out. There's the company you represent when you came here. You're carrying the brand with you when you get here. The last one is character. Character is the brand equivalent of your unique selling point. It is the thing that makes you unique, the thing that would define you in a crowd of companies that do the exact same thing you do. This applies to B2B as well. For as much as usually we don't really think about it, it applies heavily to B2B as well, because at the end of the day, you interpret every single thing you receive with sentiment. So when you get an email and it says a name at a brand that you recognize, there's an immediate profile that you put to that name that you recognize. So character matters, because that's usually the first thing people will say about you, right? On the perception side, this is when people receive you. So it's not what you say, it's how they hear you. That's your voice. It's not necessarily like the emotion that you convey, but the residual emotion that you leave people with. When you think about feeling, think about that. Have you ever walked into a business or like a restaurant, whatever, and you don't actually consume anything, but when you walk out, you feel like that was nice? Yeah, you feel a little bit lighter. You feel the ambience was good. Those words that you can't describe that give you a positive feeling, those things contribute to the brand. There's also places you walk into and immediately feel unsafe, and then you hold your wallet a little bit tighter. Those things contribute to how you receive the brand and how you perceive the brand. If you're going to take your kid to a school and you're told this school has the best performance and blah, 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 and you walk in and the first thing you see is something that scares you, that school has gone down on your list. First thing you smell is urine, distant. That school has gone down on your list. It does not matter what the performance is. It does not matter what the teacher says after that. If you feel a certain way, that's not something you can come back from. And the last one is impact. And impact kind of goes into the actual, tangible impact that you have in someone's life or in the consumer's life that you're targeting. Again, this still applies to B2B because that can go from you made their lives easier, you made their processes shorter, you made this transaction seamless, you made this negotiation less stressful, to you made me feel more empowered because you gave me information I didn't have. You made me have more negotiating power because you gave me something I could sell people to. You helped me as a marketer talk to my boss about B2B marketing. Thank you, said. Impact. Yeah? So those things are kind of the contributing factors to the brand, and kind of put them in those two buckets. This is oversimplified. There's a lot more to what brands are. But I think just in terms of everything we're going to look at later, it's important to kind of remember this when you're trying to shift from people being aware to having an intention to do something with you, right? That these are the factors that you kind of want to shift. So if you want them to go from A to B, think about what the A to B is in terms of perception, in terms of voice, in terms of the feeling you want to leave them with. So yeah, let's talk about attention since we're there now, and what exactly people are trying to do by getting so much attention. I feel like we've reached a point in life where attention is extremely accessible. If you have $100 right now and you want everybody in this building to know that you're here, you can put up a Google ad that targets this building and let everybody know that you're here. Yeah, attention is kind of one of those things where in a digital space, it has value, but only as much value as you can attach to that value, right? It's a vehicle. It's not an actual achievement necessarily. And keep in mind, again, attention is very fickle. Yeah, I'll give you a perfect example. If I stand here and I talk to you and you guys are all here and paying attention, and a balloon pops, you will turn away. That balloon has not told you as much about your business as I have, but you will turn away. Attention does not actually mean that you have somebody's intention to work with you. It does not actually have emotional currency. All it is something that is fleeting and that we seek because we can measure. The main reason why it's become such an integral part of our funnel, is anyone here in sales before I start trashing salespeople? Cool. So the main reason why it has become so terrible, let's all gang on salespeople. The main reason is because of sales. The sales funnel demands attention. They need people right at the top, as many people as possible, so that you can take them and then you put them into your funnel and try to convert them into leads. Yeah. So you have a list of numbers that you can cold call, and as many numbers as possible so that you can hit your target, because if you hit your target, you get commissions. And that's how these things end up getting defined, right? Based on what people can measure. If you have talked to me for more than 5 hours total, not like in a go, please don't talk to me for 5 hours at a go, but I will have told you this quote before. Not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. Just because it's a metric does not mean you need to track it. Yeah, and I think the most common misconception that kind of comes up here is that we look at the metrics that are the biggest, the vanity metrics, impressions. That's a powerful one. You can get 1 million of them. Yeah, that's something you can present in the boardroom and people go, wow. But what does it mean, ultimately? Especially for B2B. Just sincerely, a lot of times, the product that we're moving, the customer base that we're looking at, is not millions of people. I mean, sometimes it is, and if you're one of those people, congratulations. But I know my agency cannot service 1 million clients right now. One day when we have 5 million employees, maybe. But right now, we can't, right? So what are we actually looking for? What is the actual measure of success to take you from where you are to where you want to be? That's an important thing to kind of keep in mind, because outside of sales, this is where the difference of what type of intention you're trying to get out of people comes in. Because when you're looking at attention, you're mainly looking at awareness. Yeah, we've talked about this, the impressions. How many times does it get seen? Put $100, everybody in the building knows you're here. That's fantastic. Does that get you business? Does that guarantee you revenue, right? It basically occurs through visibility. Can people see you? It is not a bad thing, just to keep in mind. Being seen is very important. It's just that it has to have a purpose, right? Second is it's very passive engagement. Very, very passive engagement. So passive that a lot of times it does not actually result in memory. There were 3 billboards next to the hotel when you came in. How many of them do you remember? 1? 0? 0. Kind of my point. And someone is paying $150,000 a month for each one of those. You have to really ask yourself, in terms of visibility, what are you trying to achieve, right? It will build an audience, and that's good, because you get data. You get data on who looked, and that's really important. It's not an objective, I don't think, because as far as strategies go, your objective has to tie to some sort of long-term goal. Like, it has to tie to something that will impact the business. And if being seen impacted the business, there are much cheaper ways to get seen than some of the things that we're doing right now. Let's shift to intention a little bit, because here we're looking more at interest, right? So for instance, if you see something and actually feel like, that was different. If I ask you a question like, what's the last ad you remember? Not the last ad you saw, but the last ad you remember. Whether or not you're going to use that product, it resides somewhere in your mind. So in terms of like real estate, in terms of the neighborhood where you want your content to exist and your content marketing to exist, that's where you want to go. You want to go somewhere where people think about you with a prompt. There has to be a direction. There has to be a signal. There has to be something that gives it movement, because if it's just a dot, then it's very one-dimensional. It's not going anywhere. But if it's two-dimensional, then what happens is it happens from a signal. And that signaling is something which I'll talk about a little bit more later, but it's something very important in terms of being able to shift people from point A to point B. It's the idea that you can be able to tell someone, okay, look, this is my product, means nothing to them. But if you can go to them and say, tell me about your problem, that means something to them, because what it does is it prompts you. If you do have a problem and you know who I am, then you're able to come to me and say something. That's a prompt, that's a signal, that's something that can create a starting point for us to be able to move forward. If you see a billboard that says double your revenue if you're a B2B company now, and you're outside and you've just come out of here, that's a call to action that might actually make you go, okay, how? How is a prompt. Now you've moved one step further away from, we can double your revenue, this is who we are, please remember our name, right? Because one of those things pushes you into a space that has an emotional reaction. Sorry, I just tapped the mic, I'm sorry to the production guys. The other thing here is that it forces active engagement, because asking how, doing something, responding to my prompt, those are things that basically make you have to interface with me. If you go online, and I'm sure you've seen these before, but if you go online and you see these surveys that say, find out, I don't know, how successful your SEO is by filling in these 4 things here, right? HubSpot does this all the time to just kind of trick you into getting into marketing funnels. But they basically will give you a reason to sign up for something. Do you want to get the latest report on how agencies are performing in Africa? Fill in this questionnaire here. Those things, for as much as we hate them, work because you now know the company that is tracking this information. And you now have a full reference point of the next time this signal comes up, the next time someone gives you $100 and says, please get me all the data you can on how agencies are performing in Africa, you will remember the company that actually prompted you on that, right? And then the last thing here is that it builds a customer base. This is the part where we might argue a little bit. That's why I was asking if there are salespeople here, because I don't think a customer is somebody who spends with you now. It's someone who spends with you at some point. right? You have to think about it like that. Not everybody is going to spend with you right now, especially if you're in B2B. The likelihood of you considering your customers, everybody who gives you $1 today, means that on more days than none, you have 0 customers. But if you look at who's going to spend with me this quarter, this year, this financial cycle, I don't know how people operate. I'm not a finance guy. But if you look at it from the perspective of the lifetime of that customer, then at any point, this is someone you should be speaking to, yeah? You should find a way to build something around them. And that's the person you want to build intention around specifically. And one thing to just kind of mention here, I'm going to gloss over it because it's been said a million times in a million different presentations, but by the time your ad shows up, everybody who is not relevant for that ad is not paying attention to that ad. There are ads you've seen that mean nothing to you, and so you don't remember them. Your audience are the people who actually pay attention. So anytime you put something up, don't look at it like who will see it. Look at it like who will pay attention to it, step 1. And then who are the people I want to influence, step 2, right? So if anybody who's gone through marketing school, I didn't, by the way. This is why I have the audacity to just like say things like this. Funnels are like the core of what we're taught about marketing and how you get a customer in and get a customer out. Yeah, you discover them, and then they discover you, and then they go from that to consideration, and then from consideration to conversion, and then from conversion to engagement. There's always that top-down kind of nice gravity funnel that exists, and I have an argument that that funnel is not how B2B companies should operate. Technically not how any company should operate, but I'll fight that battle on another day. Today I'm here for B2B dragon slaying. So if you had $1 million today to invest in your business, anybody can answer this so that I don't feel alone. What would you buy first? Anyone? $1 million to invest in your business, like I'm giving you now, but the condition for me giving you is you tell me where you're putting that money. Data? Do you know where you're buying the data? It depends on what it is. But you can figure it out fairly quickly, right? If you get the $1 million today, you can figure it out fairly quickly. Do you know where you'd spend yours? Oh, hi, also. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Cool. Do you know where you'd spend your million?
I'd first look at data.
Okay.
And then now try and figure out the customer pain point or your B2B partner or the audience's pain point, so that you can be able to address it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you take functional steps to be able to determine where you're going to put that, right? I'm going to pick someone who I know is more on the creative side, because I feel like those people are going to have equipment as an answer. Right? But there are people who'd buy tools. There are people who'd buy information. There are people who'd buy resources. There are people who'd say, oh, finally, I can expand the studio. Yeah. There are people who would invest in different things if they had $1 million today. Are you actively looking for data?
Yes.
Currently?
Yes.
Are you actively looking to buy data currently? Yeah. You said you'd buy data, like. Not currently. But you're a potential customer, right?
Yes.
So if I was to add you to my funnel, I'd be correct in doing that, right? Because you're a potential customer. This is kind of my point with funnels. Funnels basically are triggered by the intention to buy. She would be there, and I'd get her, and then I'd lose you. Right? This is basically the premise of why this doesn't work. Funnels work because if you're not the customer today, you're not the customer. That's where the funnel starts. The funnel starts at, is this my customer? If it's not, and the customer defined as today, then actively you're not going to get into my funnel. And the reason for this is, again, I'm going to blame salespeople because that's how it works in sales. If it's not a convertible lead, then what is the point of this information? Why are we building a community of people who aren't going to spend money with us? We are investing in them for what? Yeah? pretty fair to say. And I think this is a conversation I've had many times where we sit with B2B companies and we try to tell them, oh, you should do this because the type of people who would interact with you would like this type of thing. And they say, yeah, but how many of them are going to turn into leads? And how many of them are going to purchase this product? What are the targets that we're looking at here? Can you give me the number of trials we should expect? How many samples are we going to? Well, in a normal cycle, if you did nothing, how long does it take for you to get a new customer? The only thing this is doing is amplifying that, not in terms of shortening the time, but the number of people who will come to you. So it's not a matter of looking at the funnel in terms, and this is why the funnel in terms of sales doesn't make sense, because if you take the same structure and you apply that spend to it, your expectation is time, money, quality. If you spend money, you expect less time and better quality. That's a sales structure, right? That's a function of how sales does things. Because if you were to do that on a sales journey, if you were to go and invest, boom, give me data, hypothetically, you've started the sales funnel. At this point now you're in Sales Navigator on LinkedIn, you've spent how much is it? Like $100 a month. I know. Anyway, I was about to look for Nelly, but I'll leave her to explain later. But there she is. Anyway, but you invest, and at that point, you've kind of now started entering the sales funnel. There's real value in investing, just to be very clear. And she's going to talk about it. I'm not good at talking about it. I talk to her. She helps me. I'm not the expert here. But in the beginning, when it comes to what can you do with your content marketing to harness a community, you would be out of my funnel. But you do have an interest in data, though, I'm pretty sure, right? You're not purchasing, but you're interested. You see, that's a different question. You have an intention, but you're not currently looking for it, right? And we can extrapolate that intention if we look at it a little bit differently. So this is my proposal. I stole this from a smarter person. I think he works for LinkedIn. But the idea is in market, out of market. These are all your customers. Most of them are not going to buy with you today. Most of them are not going to buy with you tomorrow, day after, etc., etc. Down the line, they will buy with you, right? And it's important to remember this because there's something that guy said in that B2B conference for LinkedIn that I stole heavily from, by the way. Yeah, I really, really prepared for this by watching one video. I'm joking. I watched many, many videos of his. But the thing that I took out of it, and he said this really, really casually, he said businesses are not valued based on their current revenue. They're valued based on their potential growth, right? Your valuation isn't how much you're making now, it's how much you can make down the line. So if you can build a community of intent people, then your value goes up, because what it means is at some point they'll convert, right? I'll give you like a behind the scenes of that. Part of the reason why we do these conferences is not necessarily because, every single person here is going to spend with us today. If one person 3 years down the line remembers that said made them laugh about B2B and says, that guy might be fun to work with, then 3 years down the line, our value has gone up because this was done, right? So you always try to find those opportunities to look at in market, out of market, and to invest accordingly. This is where investing accordingly requires to find some balance. And again, because I don't want to pull numbers out of my head, there's a study that was done by APA Data Bank. It's a really interesting study. If you're into studies, we'll talk about it later. But they looked at thousands of B2B businesses and specifically their marketing campaigns over, I think, the span of like 15 years or something. I can't remember the exact number, but it was a long duration of time. And they were looking for trends in terms of the factors that help them achieve success. I could have just taken that report and presented it honestly, but you know what? I decided to do extra work. Anyway, so one of the things they looked at is how their spend was split, the ones that achieved success. And this is kind of what they found. It's not COVID, I promise. But this is what they found. The first year, your spend needs to go primarily into activation. You have money, give it to Nelly. Let her get you those people that you need. First year. And this is first year post-revenue, not first year like when, if anyone remembers the messy beginning of the first year of any business. Hi, Mo. We started from scratch, so we have a lot of trauma that we share together. But first year post-revenue, right? Then when you get into early growth, something happens where you have to start investing in growth. You don't need to see the exact numbers, but I'll read them to you anyway. The shift happens where you go from 35% being invested into brand to 57% being invested into brand. Because the minute you start growing, you need to build that growth. I'm just going to go back like one slide. The minute you get to this point of inflection here and things start moving up, you need to find a way to fuel that growth, right? And that's where that investment has to start matching what you're trying to achieve. So depending on where your business is, that's what you need to start looking at. Okay, you have customers now. You need more customers. You can't use the same strategy to get the people you already got to get more people. It's fishing in the same water over and over. So what do? And this is where now you'll notice that each brand that continues going keeps growing their brand investment. Whether it's B2B or B2C, this is generally true, but B2B more so. The thing I want to focus on, though, is that first year. The reason why there's brand there is specifically because of the impact that brand marketing has as compared to activation marketing. So I'd simplified this quite a bit and said that brand is out of market and activation is in market. Not entirely true, right? Because on the in-market side and the activation content, 100% that is true. The person looking to buy data now, if I put up an ad and say, we have all the information you could possibly need to scale your operations right now, she's clicking right now. I've got her, the sales thing worked, conversion immediately. I've lost everybody else, yeah? But if I start looking at the triggers and I go into that other space and say, do you think that investing in data is the right thing to do with the budget that you have right now? Just click here to find out. I get a few more people, including her. And that's why there's a 35% that goes to brand. Because brand will get you the people, activation will get you, just not as efficiently, right? So in terms of in-market, out-of-market, the conversion will happen faster here, but the conversion will still happen there down the line. And this is the thing that I think Shira is going to talk about when she comes up here, which is the idea of playing the long game. Actually being willing to invest in the long game. I'll talk about it a bit later as well. But the main thing, I've made it easy, by the way, to figure out the main things, because they're usually either highlighted or in like italics, because I'm also lazy like that. I look for the outlier. But at the bottom there, in-market activation content, it captures demand, it does not generate it. Yeah? You will capture the demand that exists, you will not generate new demand. However, brand communication will drive growth invariably. It's just how long that timeline takes. So when you're looking at that balance, like when you think about this later, because I saw a lot of people like writing and taking pictures. When you think about this later, think about this as well, because there's a different implication in terms of where you spend your money and how you spend it. And I think it differs a little bit based on business to business. If you want to discuss it in more detail, I am a big geek for numbers, so we can do that. I want to highlight a few things that also popped up in the research, because, you know, when you put together these presentations, you do a lot of research, and then you don't get to share a lot of the interesting things you find. So I figured I'm going to just briefly segue and show you guys some fun things I found that might motivate you to actually use this information. So here's one. Brand building delivers long-term growth, yeah, to be measured for longer than 6 months. Long-term, more than 6 months. Show of hands, how many people think 50% of B2B marketers measure growth for more than 6 months? 20%? 10%? What percent? Almost 4% of B2B marketers measure growth for more than 6 months. Meaning you can have a really good and successful brand campaign, and then mteja wa nambari hapatikani kwa sasa. You actually lose on the thing that was working because you didn't track it. You tried it and gave up. We've had contracts where people, after 3 months, were like, non-performance, and you're like, wait, what? We just set up your analytics. What do you mean? And this is the thing, right? A lot of times, people don't go that extra step of giving it the time that it deserves. I'll give you another one. Again, I'll just do 3 of them. There are a bunch of them. If you want the others, we can talk later. Fame that usually comes from doing those campaigns that everybody remembers and they're so creative and you're like, that was really cool. Those things, yeah? Notoriously, B2B do not invest in that level of creativity, right? However, it has been found to be the most profitable brand advertising that any B2B brand can do. Remember that long study I was telling you about? They qualified the types of campaigns that they ran, and this came out as the most profitable, right? 77% of B2B marketers would prefer to do the small test and learn dipstick. Let's do small movements here and there. Let's not go for big creative ideas. 77%. I'm saying this because if you decide to go radical, go creative, go big, your competition is a lot smaller than you think it is. And the people who are tracking that growth are a lot fewer than you think they are. I'll give you the last one. It's a 2-parter. So emotional advertising, brand, campaigns, drive more than double the long-term growth of rational advertising. So again, there's types of campaigns we're looking at is like the really activation-leaning ones versus the brand ones. And in terms of growth was double for brand versus for the rational, boring types. B2B marketers, on the other hand, are the opposite. Twice as likely to go rational, twice as likely to say, no. If my product values are not there, if you do not talk about the tension and the product descriptions and whatever other fancy words you want to use to describe the specific mechanical thing that you're putting out there, then they don't want to hear it, right? And this is where you find that a lot of loss happens because the opportunity is clearly somewhere else and just clearly not being looked at. I think one last thing I wanted to mention, this came up as well, is I don't know if I'm the only one who was surprised by this, but B2B buyers have significant... My ancestors descended upon me for a brief second. Go away. So B2B buyers have significantly higher emotional connection with their vendors than B2C customers. In terms of brand salience, in terms of actual relationships, by the time I have managed to swing that deal to convince you to become a supplier, we better be best friends. We are going to, you're going to take so much money, they're going to take so much risk, you're going to take so much effort to make this happen. By the time that connection happens, by the time you find that hotel that signs up and says, I'm going to buy X amount of your products for this much time, by the time you sign a contract with an agency or with a partner to do XYZ work for you, you better have a relationship. You've talked to them so many times that that relationship has to be deep. Whereas, on the other hand, do you remember the shopkeeper you dealt with this morning? Right? B2C bonds are fleeting. Very, very fleeting. Very, very fleeting. Not all of them, but most of them. B2B ones tend to start at a point of high emotional engagement. And this is important to remember for the next point. I said I'll warn you before I say this, so I'm just going to warn you. This is the cliche that you've probably heard 10 million times if you're in B2B marketing, and I'm sorry, but I have to say it because it's true, and this would not be that conference if I didn't say it. You're not selling to companies, you're selling to people. Yeah? Again, I am sure you've heard this 10 million times, but just bear with me. There's one additional layer I want to add to this, just a little bit of my own spice. Because, yes, you're selling to human beings, but you're selling to people, plural. Various individuals, and you need to be able to have a very clear idea of who those individuals are, right? The idea here is that each one of them has a different role in the decision-making pipeline for what you're doing. I don't think there's any B2B that kind of goes through and it's us as the agency talking to the marketing person, and then the marketing person makes the decision. At some point, some random procurement person is going to come in and say, and what do you know about marketing? Nothing, but you're involved in my pipeline now. At some point, the CEO is going to come, and if that's the day he walks into the office and I was over there cracking jokes that were inappropriate, doesn't matter what results we can give. you have multiple touch points, and each one of those people has an opinion and has a role in making decisions towards whether or not that business transacts. Yeah? So that was my additional to this, but ultimately it's just you're not selling to companies, you're selling to people. Also, as the lady in the back is implying, most people have one brain. This is important to remember because, as we said, you're selling to people. Those people are being sold to by other people and other things and other influencers. If you're on Instagram, you're competing with other influencers, you're competing with my friends and family, you're competing with other brands, you're competing with other industries. It is one brain that is taking in every signal that you're sending out. Yeah? If you're on LinkedIn, likewise, if I'm there to look for a job and you're trying to sell me something, how are you speaking to me? If I'm there to connect with someone because I saw that they just got a promotion and I want to be early, tell them congratulations in case I need a loan. And then you come in and you're trying to talk to me. How are you speaking to me? Because that idea of understanding that it is one brain that you're talking into means that you're able to fit into that pipeline at the point of an emotional connection, right? So when you're thinking about that target audience, you're thinking about it based on where do I fit in this person's journey? Because remember what I said, it's like multiple people in the pipeline. You have to be able to identify who each one of these people are and then what they're doing where you are. So being able to find your way into that space and find the content that speaks into that space, that emotional real estate for them, is how you're able to build something that they can resonate with for a long period of time. Hey. Last thing is just to remember, what do you do? Who do you do what you do for? Right? So very, very specifically thinking about, I'll break it down a little bit simpler, what your objectives are with the audience that you're targeting. It's something I think I had a long discussion with someone this week about. I won't point because I don't remember who, but the idea is that sometimes your business objectives or your finance objectives or your strategic objectives or whatever other objectives you may have, marketing objectives, are not necessarily the objectives of the audience that you're trying to reach. They're not coming to you to meet your target, right? That's basically what I'm saying. They're coming to you, you're trying to meet your target. Somewhere there's an overlap. So you have to think about who you're trying to meet and what you do for them, because that's where the connection happens. The whole idea here is how do we shift them from not caring to caring? So the functional benefit might be clear in your head. You might say to yourself, oh, I'm going to save them money, right? The thing you have to ask yourself is saving money something that matters to this person? Is there something else I do that matters to this person more? If you say, I'm going to give them more time to connect with their family, it's not a function of your business, but it has a deeper emotional connection, right? If you say, I'm going to give them the ability to do something more fun, not a functional benefit unless you make toys, in which case, sure. But then otherwise, the main thing you're doing is that you're tapping into an emotional response. And emotional responses will 100%, we've seen the data from before, but will 100% get you more return from talking to a human being, right? So with that said, let me give you the punchline. These are 6 quick strategies, not quick, but they're 6 strategies to be able to achieve successful storytelling. Yeah, we're going to go through them. Each one of them has their own impact, and I'm going to try to make sure that they're not boring at all. There was a video in there, but I'm not going to play it because we've established the sound isn't working, and I'm not going to narrate this one because it has emotion. I don't cry in front of you today. Anyway, so strategy number 1, and the main thing to keep in mind for this one, everybody's looking for something. SEO for B2B is BIG. I was trying to find another 3-letter acronym. I couldn't find one, so I just wrote big. But the idea here is for B2B, you usually think about it like you're targeting a very small audience. It's not that you're targeting a very small audience, you're targeting a smaller audience. So when you're making those changes in your SEO strategy, don't think about it like making this audience as narrow as possible. We already established that your growth happens outside of today's customer. The person buying today is not the specific person you're looking for. The person who will buy with me over the next year, 2 years is the person that you're looking for. Yeah, those conversions are what will lead to the growth. That growth is what leads to your value. That's where you get your return. So expand that just a little bit. Now, it's important to say there's the mix of brand versus activation content. So there are times where 100%, I think we had this conversation a few weeks ago, but you have to get very specific. You have to be able to get in that person's inbox. That specific human being. We'll talk about that later. But in general, what you want to do here is you want to try as much as possible to just get, when you're doing your SEO, a little bit broader, and then give people an opportunity to go where they need to go. So the big thing I've bolded down there, it's not big, but it's bolded, is you want to direct your traffic using signals. I'm going to give you a perfect example of this, but you want to be able to think about SEO outside of just the keywords and everything, and more about the user experience. So here's a decent example. First of all, you can't see which company this is, yeah? It's hidden somewhere. So right at the top here, top left, on that little thing, it says Robot Mascot. Robot Mascot is a company that helps early stage businesses looking for investments of 500,000 to 1 million pounds connect with investors. So what they do is they will take your business and they will help you professionalize and, get more visible. Like, they make your deck look nice. They make you look like you know what you're doing. They'll organize a shoot so that you look pretty, not like the way some of us look in our shoots. Need to reshoot that. But the point being, they will take your brand and elevate it and then prepare you strategically so you can go pitch for £1 million. But that's not what they're selling here. What they're asking you is, would an investor give you their money today? Fill in this survey and find out. What have they done? The signal when you're searching, if you're searching for money and you're in that early stage, is not, I'm looking for an agency. You don't know. Like, I think prior to me saying it right now, did you know that there are agencies that specialized in this specific thing? Right? We are building something, and I didn't know until I started putting together this case study. But the point is, when I was looking for investors, this scorecard came up. Because their customer, the emotional touch point for me is, do we have everything we need? And then what do you go to Google with? The questions you can't answer yourself. Do we have everything we need? And why don't my friends call me back? Okay, delete the why don't my friends call me back. Do we have everything we need? And then you find this, right? And this is kind of what they've done. They've tapped into that emotional core of the business decision you're trying to make and given you something where not only do you then enter their pipeline, but you give them information that they can use to negotiate with you. They now have, they profile you properly. What's this? What are you doing? Where have you reached? How far have you gone? What's the potential? What's this one? And all that data means that they take it, and what do? They go back to their SEO strategy, refine their targeting, change their content around, and then when they call you, they have resources they can send you. They have exact points they can use when they're talking to you. They have all those things by the time you're starting. They didn't push it to you, you pushed it to them. So that's what I mean by directing with signals. Because the other pipeline you can end up with is if you say, I am ready to pitch, they have a page called Ready to Pitch. They actually have that whole pipeline thought through for every emotional touch point for the specific person that they're looking for. And this is kind of what I mean, is start to think about your SEO from that standpoint. And again, it's the approach we also use when we're looking at these types of things as well. Second one, I want to kind of highlight that everybody poops. There's a reason for this. Did you know that 77% of people take their phones with them to the toilet? And did you know, don't look at the person next to you. This is not the time. This is not the time. But did you know of that 77%, that 80% of them immediately go to social media? Yeah, this is where you start looking at people differently when they text you back. So, but the point is, the idea here is that social media is not an option. It has invaded your most private moments. If people could check TikTok in the shower, they would. Yeah? This is where we've reached. We have reached a point where you can't say as a B2B brand, TikTok is for the youth. Nah, you can't. You can't remove yourself from that situation. There's no way you can say that I want to exist in a world where someone is going to invest, but I'm not going to exist in the world where that person exists, right? Whatever your business is, you need to find your way into that space. Now, you need a presence for sure. You need a personality. I'm going to point back to Tony from earlier for the people who were here during that example, where you will remember him, yeah? But the more important thing is you need a community. And building communities is where now I think a lot of people struggle, because you think as a B2B, first of all, for the B2B people, please love yourselves, because a lot of times I hear, we are boring. What we do isn't interesting. How can we build a community? Genuinely, there's someone who cares about what you do. If you made precision screws that go into machines that are sent into space, your target audience is anybody who cares about engineering, because they would be so interested in finding out how you do it. And you don't know where that person is going to go, but if they're interested in engineering, there's a high likelihood they're going to be working at one of these companies. High likelihood. And even if they're not, it definitely means that the person working at this company will find it, because what do they do in their free time? Consume things that spark their interest. You don't need to get 1 million people buying, but you need to make sure that that one has a real connection with you, and everybody around him tells him about this, right? So in many ways, building that community starts from being able to target the first 10 people that you think are going to interact with you, and give them a reason to talk to 10 other people just like them. And then repeat that 5 times and you have 1 million people. Generally, that's how it works. Sometimes you don't need to repeat it 5 times. Sometimes you just need to do it 2 or 3 times. But once you have that community, you then need to foster it. We haven't talked about persuasion, but there's like a lot of commitment that needs to go into how you persuade people to really continue believing in you. Since we're talking about things people do in the bathroom, everyone loves to watch. Not what you think. Video strategies require work to work. They work, but they require work to work. And this is twofold. Yeah, I was trying to be smart with how I phrase this sentence. First is, obviously, you need to put a strategy together. But second is, it's about showing as much as it is about telling, right? So you want to show people what you're telling them. That means that whatever you're saying, you have to be able to back it up. And that's what video works best for. And then you have to be able to show what you do for people. People have to be able to get the functional, emotional, whatever benefit it is you're pushing out of the video when they watch it. If it's about a feeling that you're selling, that feeling needs to be clear. You can't be like, oh, this is going to make you happy. And then your video just starts with Seth going, hi, so this is what we're selling. And yeah. No excitement, no nothing. It has no emotional resonance to what you're trying to do. You have to be able to kind of fit that space with what you're trying to push. This is the one place where I'll say just invest, because it's not your core business to be interesting. I don't mean that as like a front. It's just a thing that, in general, I have realized that as the strategy person, I am not the copy person, you know? You have to be able to know, you can give direction on the what needs to happen. You cannot dictate the how it needs to happen. Whoever is the expert there, let them be the person to do that. So just try as much as possible to kind of invest in that, the ideation, the innovation. And I think one thing I want to mention on video when it comes to ideation and innovation is a lot of times I think we think about video and we think, TikTok, Reels, short videos that go into your social, explainer videos. If you're really fancy, you start thinking thought leadership videos. Look at you fancy people. Some of you go into the next level. There's something I was involved in really recently, like Wednesday, hi guys, which is a perfect example of how you can innovate with video, which was a webinar. It was a webinar that was very specifically getting a bunch of people in the same industry to dissect a topic. It's like this, but online. That's brilliant, because everybody who talked about what they offered made me think I should talk to them later, right? You're using video to be able to actually interact with people. It's not video that you're producing or whatnot, but it's something that's been thought through enough to be made purposeful enough that it has value for me. Yeah? Everyone wants to know. I think this is another trigger that we always remember. Thought leadership is coming up. Sharon has a much better presentation than I do. No pressure. But but the idea here is, one, you need to commit to a cause. whatever it is, whatever thing you decide that you're going to build thought leadership around. If you're trying to help people invest so that they can do this, or you're trying to help people do whatever it is that you decide you're going to do, commit to it. We already talked about how the pipeline is going to be over 6 months for return. If you're doing brand content, that means you shouldn't be looking at how your content is performing until you've invested like a year into it consistently, which is the second point. Contribute consistently. And consistently doesn't just mean in time, it also means in where the conversation is. So if you're trying to do marketing thought leadership, then you need to be aware that that also happens in conferences, not just online. It also happens here, not just there. If you build it in one place, then what you're trying to do is build it in that one specific place. So like if you do LinkedIn marketing content, you're fine because you do LinkedIn marketing, right? But at the same time, LinkedIn marketers are also on YouTube. So I'm sure that's where your content also goes. And this is the thing to consider, is just don't limit yourself to the where, limit yourself to the context of where the knowledge that you're trying to build is. And then the step above that is to make sure that you don't just build the knowledge base, but you build it with character. Build it in a way that it is uniquely yours, right? As much as possible, I try to apply this in my life in such a way that if anyone had this presentation, then they get to the everybody poop slide, they would not be able to pull it off, but I can. I'm joking. Then there's one video here, like I mentioned, that won't be shown, but this is specifically a Siemens video. We'll send it in the email when we send the recap for this. It's a very cute video, but essentially they asked parents of the people who work at Siemens what their kids do. Highly specialized company that does extremely complicated things. And then they got the parents to respond to that. Just the hook, just the concept of that, you kind of want to know what it's about, right? Do you want to know what it's selling? This program where they teach you what they do. So the idea is you go and you see how these parents are like, oh yeah, my son stops train accidents from happening. I don't know, he does something, the cloud's involved. I don't know why the weather is involved. But ultimately what they're giving you is a step-by-step of all the little keywords that you might think about when you think about this program. And that's what they're selling to you. So taking that moment to go a step further and not just say, oh, we have classes, sign up. Let's take it a bit further. What's the emotional connection? Who are the people who need this knowledge? Step, until you get to those people are probably parents who are trying to figure out what to do with their business, and they feel like every time it's explained to them, it's Greek. So let's talk to the people who think this is Greek and get other people who speak Greek to talk to them, right? Oh no, it's playing. Those guys should come explain tech to me. Anyway, so that I can fix the audio. The last one, everybody wants to connect. And this is the one where the businesses that do it a lot of times overdo it. And this is basically that idea of direct messaging, inbox, email marketing. Yeah, I mentioned HubSpot earlier and how they make you sign up for everything. And I'm pretty sure there are people who had HubSpot and just shook because their inbox just is traumatized by the number. Okay, cool. But the idea is you have to be able to kind of have some sort of inbox strategy. And the reason for this is mainly that you want to be able to speak to individuals at some point. At some point, you need to take this off of the place where you're sitting in a forum and more into the space where I'm talking to you one-on-one. Because that's where the connection is going to happen, that's where the conversion is going to happen, and that's where people get more comfortable, right? There's only so much of myself I will share with you in your comment section. Everything else happens on a one-to-one basis. So to that end, I think it's two things. One, make sure that each message you send out has value. I should feel like I'm getting something out of this. And the second one is be consistent with what you do. Now, one thing to mention on the making sure each one has value. There's a brand that I followed. I don't want to say their names because I feel like this will be recorded, but I'm guessing from all the cameras. But the brand that I follow that used to send a lot of emails, maybe like 7-8 emails a week. And then one day they sent this email and they were like, okay, fine, we'll stop. And the email had no graphics or anything. It was just a letter from one of the directors of the company saying, we get it. You guys are receiving too many emails from us. So what we're going to do now is we're going to send you one email a week. Yeah. Randomly on a Thursday, I'm going to pick the things that are the most relevant for you and send them out to you. If you want more emails, go subscribe for more emails. That was it. From that email forward, I have been checking all their emails because now I've realized somebody's actually putting effort into this. You're no longer just spamming me with 100 videos of everything that you think is worth it. This director has decided to take it upon himself to spend an hour in the week putting together an email for me. I like that guy. I'm going to follow this. Yeah? Try to think of the same thing here. What can you do with your inbox? And this applies across the board. Just to be clear, there are people who check their Instagram inbox as frequently as they check their email. People who check their texts and WhatsApp as frequently as they check all these other things. You have multiple ways to directly engage. Some of you have WhatsApp channels and communities, I'm sure. What are you putting in those spaces that get into people's devices on a one-on-one basis? So try to think about that, and where possible, pick a person over people. Speak to an individual over the people, right? You'll notice that none of the strategies said AI. I'm not contributing to that. Thank you. But the main reason for this is, and I'm only going to say it this once, it's just AI is a tool, not a strategy. You apply it where it's needed and apply it as much as you can, but do not, as much as possible, build a strategy around it. I feel like we all thought at some point it was going to change the world. We did a whole conference about it, and I think we said the same thing, that it's a tool. It's important to learn how to use these tools in the different sections that they go into, and it's going to evolve over time. But that's kind of like telling you use the internet right now. That's not a strategy. Yeah. So apply it where necessary. And with that said, I have been said, and I've enjoyed my time here. Thank you very much. And if there's any questions, I'm still here. Until they chase me off. Yeah. But anyway, thank you very much. Not COVID. No questions? Can I go sit down? Cool. Okay, I'm going to struggle putting this back on. Yeah, sorry. Well, that was a lot louder than I thought it would be. If you do want to talk separately, I'm going to be here all day. I'm mandated by the fact that I work here. But no, seriously. I'm open to having separate conversations about individual needs and seeing if there's anyone I can help out with anything. I'll yield the floor. I don't know what's next in the program. I never remember these things. I'm so sorry, Shiro. I should read the programs. You work so hard. Yeah.
I believe my voice is loud enough. Good morning, everyone. So we're going to take a short break. You can grab some tea, some snacks, and then Nelly is going to be sharing some amazing stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thank you. Do I disconnect or I switch to? I tried, and then it gave me this. So and then I was like,